Get ready for an epic adventure with a unique twist. Meet Rakuro, a boy passionate about games, but not just any game. He loves the most troublesome ones, full of bugs and glitches. The more imperfect, the better. However, everything changes when he visits a game store and is advised to try something new, a divine game where perfection reigns and bugs have no place. Rakuro decides to embark on this new adventure, but in a risky way. He chooses the weakest class and sells all his equipment, focusing only on his weapon. Now, a single strike is enough to take him out of the game. That's what we'll see today. Without further ado, let's move on to the recap. The anime begins by showing us the completion of a game. Rakuro finally manages to complete one of the worst games he's ever played, but unexpectedly, Rakuro delivers a flying kick to Furia's face. A girl who, in theory, should be the heroine of the game, but soon you'll see that it wasn't quite like that. After doing this, Rakuro is excited to have finished that game and to get back at the troublesome girl. And at this moment, we have a brief explanation about the reality of this anime. It is shown that Rakuro lives in a world where screen games are considered retro, and immersive virtual reality games are the most common. Among the many games released, there are those where the design and graphics aren't that good, and these games also have many bugs, which pushes most players away. However, there are those who are especially drawn to this kind of problematic game, and these people are known as perverts or weirdos. And Hakuro Hizutome, the protagonist of this story, is one of those people. We see that he is quite relieved to have finished the last game, and he quickly begins to think about what bad game he will play next. After that, Rakuro goes to school. While walking through the hallway, we see a girl getting ready to talk to him. She even practices her lines, but when she gains the courage to approach him, one of Rakuro's friends appears and completely interrupts her. Then, this girl goes to a game store, and the store owner says it's a shame that Rakuro didn't come today. The girl, embarrassed, says she just came to look for some games. But the woman says she can't hide that she likes him. And after a while, Rakuro arrives, asking the owner if she has any good bad game for him. In his head, this makes sense, but when he appears, the girl hides quickly, leaving Mana, the store owner, very confused. She asks Rakuro if he managed to complete the game he was playing, and Rakuro happily says yes. And enthusiastically, he begins to explain how bad the game was. Full of bugs, bad story, and the protagonist always ended up ruining his journey. To him, she was the real villain of the story. But he says it was really satisfying to finish it, because after defeating the final boss, he has a 3-minute window where he can finally beat her without worrying about the game's progress being interrupted. And that's what he did. Rakuro made sure to beat her as much as he could, and it really relieved the stress he went through with her by his side. After that, Rakuro says he doesn't know what to play anymore, and Mana recommends him the new most played game in the world, Shangri Frontier, a divine game with over 30 million players and practically no bugs. Rakuro resists, since, for him, the really good games are the bad ones, but he ends up giving the game a chance. When he gets home, he starts studying a bit about the game and finally decides to log in and create his character. In the class choice, he chooses to be a mercenary with 2 daggers. And as a natural choice, he chooses to be a wanderer. After spending some time customizing his character, the result is this. Yes, a guy with a bird mask and shorts. No, he's not a pervert. I can explain why he's like that. Rakuro decided to sell all his armor so that he can focus on getting a good weapon from the start. Without armor and almost naked, he decides to wear a mask since, for him, it's too embarrassing for people to see his face while dressed like that. And after that, he chooses his nickname, and in the game, he will be called Sunraku, the name he always uses in all games. After that, he finally enters the game. Rakuro starts testing the game's movement and finds it amazingly well made. According to him, the previous game didn't even compare to what he can do here. Next, Rakuro takes a look at the map and sees that he is near the initial city. But since he chose the Wanderer class, he starts his journey in the forest. Ideally, he should head towards the city, but he is attacked by a goblin while heading there. Rakuro gets excited and starts hunting monsters to gain experience and get stronger. He notes that the battle system depends a lot on the player's skill, which benefits him a lot since he trained a lot having to overcome games with bad controls and endless bugs. Now, in a divine game, he is more than prepared. Rakuro continues in the forest facing monsters, until he encounters a rabbit that is fast and strong, nearly cutting his neck off. The monster's name is Vorpal Rabbit, and it attacks Rakuro, being extremely strong and scaring our protagonist. Rakuro manages to land an attack, but the rabbit is still alive and doesn't seem weakened. Rakuro then realizes that he needs to land a critical hit on the rabbit, and he quickly cuts the big rabbit's neck. After defeating it, Rakuro notices that the colossal rabbit didn't drop its weapons. This saddens him because he really wanted those daggers the rabbit was using. Rakuro then starts getting excited, seeing the various ways he can fight, and begins to think of different fighting combinations. After that, he continues hunting monsters in hopes of finding more rabbits to get those daggers to drop. As the Vorpal rabbit is a rare monster, it took Rakuro more than 2 hours to finally get a set of daggers, but now he can finally head to the city. Rakuro checks the map and realizes he has strayed far from the first city, being much closer to Secondale, the second city. Rakuro notes that to get there, he must cross a bridge and proceeds to do so. What he doesn't know is that when he reaches the bridge, he will encounter a huge snake. Rakuro then realizes that this will be the first boss he should defeat. The problem is that Rakuro has no armor, and he hasn't even passed through the first city to gather resources and people to form a group, as that snake is usually defeated by a group of players. But Rakuro has no idea about this and decides to face the snake alone. Rakuro prepares himself and attacks it enthusiastically, but before he starts attacking, the anime shows us a strange person with armor that seems to be strong in the first city. This person is Rei, the girl who likes him. She is looking for him so that she can help him and perhaps finally get closer to the eccentric boy. Unfortunately for her, he is already heading to the second city. Well, back to the gigantic snake, and Rakuro attacks it. He seems to be having a lot of fun. Rakuro dodges its attacks and realizes the snake is really strong. At some point, he manages to land a hit on it, but contrary to what he thought, it doesn't deal any damage. On the contrary, his initial daggers are destroyed in this attack. Rakuro is forced to use the Vorpal rabbit's dagger, and when he was about to land another blow on the snake, it catches him off guard. The snake spits venom on him, and being poisoned, he suffers 1 damage every 10 seconds. Rakuro has 30 HP, so he has just under 5 minutes to defeat the snake and find a checkpoint to save his progress. But he doesn't lose hope. He says that the bad games he played are much harder than this and immediately attacks the snake. While fighting, Rakuro realizes that it's not easy to hit its head, which is probably its weak point. So he decides to deliver repeated attacks in one spot to create a weak point. But even that doesn't work. It throws him up and grabs him with its mouth. Rakuro's end seemed certain at this point. However, he manages to prevent being swallowed and jumps out of the snake's mouth. Then, he lands a hit on its head and grabs onto the snake's hair. Yes, the snake has hair. At this moment, he uses an ability called Screw Pierce and hits the snake's eye, finally defeating it. After eliminating it, he is very happy and starts to look at the drops and stats he received. But he realizes it's not the time for that, as his life is quickly descending, leaving him with only 9 HP. Rakuro quickly allocates all his points into stamina so that he can run to the city, and he does. At the city gate, we see a girl and a boy. We see that he is teaching her how to start in the game. While they were talking, the girl spots Rakuro coming really fast, and based on his mask, she imagines him to be a monster and prepares to attack him. But her friend stops her since he has a name above his head, indicating he is a player. If she attacks him, she will become PK, and a skull will appear in front of her name, which is very bad. The guy assumes that Rakuro is poisoned by the snake, as this often happened early in the game, and quickly guides him on how to get to the inn, where Rakuro can save his game before dying. Rakuro arrives there, and the receptionist takes forever to explain how it works. Desperate, Rakuro tells her to shut up and just give him any available room, which she does. With only 1 HP left, Rakuro finally manages to save his game and immediately dies. Next, he continues exploring the city. He needs a map, some healing items, and new equipment because walking around the city that way is kind of embarrassing. Everyone is staring and commenting about him. Rakuro quickly buys a blade-proof armor and is happy with it since now they won't see him as a pervert. Then, he goes to a weapon shop to try to sell the goblin axe he picked up, but unfortunately, it's worthless, and it would be better to throw it away. Rakuro asks to see the weapons the shopkeeper has, but none are as good as the Vorpal rabbit daggers he has. The shop owner says of course, as those daggers are very rare, and if he wants something better, he should make it himself. The blacksmith says that if he gathers the materials, he can make stronger weapons for him. Rakuro is excited about the idea and quickly goes to the difficulty swamp to get the necessary materials by mining the rocks. Rakuro mines a lot and realizes that he can only find common stones. The ore he needs is rare, so he will spend a lot of time there. After about 30 minutes, Rakuro has only managed to get 2 ores and becomes frustrated. In addition, the swamp mud slows down his movement significantly, and it's becoming annoying. He continues mining until a frog appears and jumps near him, splattering him with mud and completely exhausting Rakuro's patience. He gets really angry and starts beating the poor frog until it retreats. He notices that upon killing it, the creature dropped its skin, which is the same material from which Rakuro's armor is made. Rakuro realizes that there are new players nearby and decides to focus on mining before the place gets crowded. After a few hours, he returns to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith is surprised by the amount of ore Rakuro has obtained. The blacksmith then shows the weapon he can craft with that. Rakuro gets really excited, as the weapon looks cool and seems to be quite powerful. While the blacksmith crafts the weapon, Rakuro takes a look at other shops and buys some items. Eventually, he returns to the blacksmith, and his daggers are ready. He is very happy with them, as their durability is much higher than weapons dropped by monsters. The blacksmith also mentions that he can craft better weapons if he obtains new materials, and he can also upgrade his weapons with the blacksmith. The blacksmith also warns him not to leave the city now with those clothes, and Rakuro asks why. The blacksmith explains that it's already dark, and night monsters are very dangerous and aggressive. But as expected, Rakuro doesn't listen, and he quickly goes out to test his new weapons. Meanwhile, the girl is looking for him, heading towards the second city, and remember that snake that almost killed Rakuro? Well, with just one attack, she defeated it. Here, we see that she is extremely strong. Back to Rakuro, he is battling against a night goblin. However, this night goblin is much stronger than the first one he faced. It is resilient and learns to deal with Rakuro's attacks, making it difficult to be defeated. They fight for quite a while until the goblin calls many others to attack Rakuro, which surprises him, as this ability is usually used by weaker monsters. Now, Rakuro is surrounded by hat-wearing goblins and finds himself in a complicated situation. He decides to advance and attack them all, but when he's about to strike, a large amount of power appears and defeats all the goblins. The author of this is a giant wolf, now targeting Rakuro. It is a unique monster called Lycaon, the Night Assailant. It appears to be extremely strong, and it doesn't make sense to appear to a newbie like Rakuro. After this, we go to the servers where the game is hosted, and we see that this is the first unique monster to appear, and no one has ever spotted it before. Will Rakuro be able to defeat it? Well, we'll find out in the next episode. But I want to know from you, what did you think of this anime start? Tell me in the comments below. And while you're down there, go ahead and subscribe and leave that like to help me out. And for you who are awesome and always stay until the end, I left an amazing video here on the final screen. It tells the story of Adonis, a human boy raised by a witch, who saw her being killed by humans before his eyes. He swore revenge, and you can be sure it will be the bloodiest. Click on the screen and check it out, it's simply amazing. Alright, until next time, see ya.